Heaps of tournament results over the past weekend. We had 2 BCS events, actually 3, but one hasn't been covered yet, as well as the WGP event in Indonesia. So let's go through all the results, kind of see what happened, what went down on the weekend, and I was at one of them. So let's get right into it. So starting off with BCS Austria, so starting with standard, the pie chart is very different. Lots of Shiranui, and half of the pie chart is Dragon Empire, which is pretty crazy to me. Actually, a little bit more than half because we had Al Calibra there too. But 5 Shiranui, the most popular deck in the top 16 breakdown, followed by Shoujo Doji at 3, and then a bunch of one-offs from other archetypes and other nations. So as you can see there, then the top 8 breakdown, a lot of the Shoujo Doji is actually 66% of the Shoujo Doji converted, whereas only 2 out of the 5 Shiranui did. And then the Minerva, Fennel, Alden, and Razel came through as well. Then looking at the top 4 who made it to Worlds. So first place taken by Michael Calvin with Shoujo Doji. Second was Mo, or Mo TT, the god of Genesis essentially, with Minerva. Of all things in this current format, that's pretty crazy. Thomas S with Shiranui coming third, and then April just falling short with Fennel. So let's just look at Mo's deck. It's pretty shiny, as you can see. There's lots of serial Minervas right there, but I'm just wondering like how this deck, I guess, operates in this current format, right? So thinking back to what Minerva had before, it didn't have Biscotti, it didn't have the Fighters Collection Grade 1, and nor did it have this Grade 2. So this Grade 2 is actually pretty crazy, right? So essentially, when it's placed on rearguard, if you have a Grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Minerva in its name, you can Soboss 2, choose 2 normal units with the same card name and without Sentinel from your drop. If you chose 2 cards, put 1 into hand, put 1 to bottom of deck, right? So essentially, you can recycle like a bunch of your stuff. So you can recycle like your Biscottis, you can recycle your check top guy. There's just a lot of things that you can utilize from this card. If, let's just say you need an attacker, you bring back an attacker. If you need to put stuff to the bottom, in case you deck out for some reason, then you can. And you're playing the Keta OT, so, you know, if your rear guards are like all Grade 3s, then, you know, you're going to be checking everything under the sun. You're also playing Radiance Caliburn, an Easy Pot of Greed, or an on-demand countercharge Soul Charge. It's pretty good, right? So yeah, very interesting list. I gotta say, if you have to, you know, reference a list for Minerva, this is the place to be. Mo has been, you know, a Genesis entrepreneur for a long time, and you know, this is pretty much where you would go. So yeah, congrats Mo, and obviously congrats to the other 2 players making it to Worlds as well. Then we had BCS Austria Premium. So there's a lot of diversity here. So 3 Nubatama, 2 Dimension Police, 2 Gear Chronicles, 2 Grand Blue, where one of them is Beatrice based, and then a bunch of one-offs of everything else. I see some weird ones like Freeze Ray, Flagbird Colony, Spino Driver. That's pretty crazy. And then Big Belly, and only 1 Katrina. That's pretty wild to me. I think Katrina's too good to not be bringing at a higher popularity rate, but you know, people obviously bring what they like, which is pretty cool. Then converting into the top 8, so that was only the top 16, so converting to top 8, 3 Nubatama made it. I think that was all 3 Nubatamas made it. The 2 Grand Blues made it, one of the 2 Dimension Police made it, and then the Angel Gizeh and the Eradicator made it too. Then the top 4, first was taken by Hal, a returning world finalist with Night Rose. Second was Liam Shane Guminowan with Shiranui. Third was Daniel N, so Dynamis with Dimension Police. And then just falling short, coming 4th place, was Stefan D with Angel Gizeh. So I think the top 2 are like pretty standard decks, so we won't go through those, but let's go through the DP list. So this is Dynamis's list. Very similar to the one that we saw in Duluth that came 2nd. So obviously playing the Rayverse, which is the Archetype Grade 3, essentially has front row protection. You're also playing the Dual Nation card to be able to, I guess, you know, have an early game. I think that's one thing that DP lacks. And you can also, you know, just bottom deck stuff. So that, you know, if you bottom deck Grade 3s, when your deck is low, you just check Grade 3 and you just win, right? Other things that this player is running, so they're playing Radiance Caliburn, also the one of the grade 1 Heal Guardian, 3 Honor Leagues, which is a little bit more than what I think the second place Duluth played, but otherwise everything else is kind of the same. I think a lot of the DP lists are dropping Dizoris now, dropping a lot of these other, grade 3 targets, and then just being able to slot in like a lot of early game, which is great, right? Which is pretty much what the deck needed, I think. G-Zone's pretty normal, nothing has changed. Yeah, we didn't get any new strides, right? Then the Angel Gize list. So this one is pretty interesting. I was like pondering through like previous Angel Gize lists. This one struck out to me. So pretty much you're running the V Gavriel stuff. So your Gavriel and your Hamiel for top checks, right? You're also playing the Reverence Rush to stack heals and a heal down, pretty normal. Your Jafkiel, what's her name? Salafiel to check as well. You're also playing the grade 1 to check. You're playing Honolese to deny your opponent or slow down your opponent. But you're also playing 4 of this new grade 1. So what does grade 1 actually do? So when it's placed from Guardian to Guardian from hand, you can remove a heal from hand or drop. And then this gains 5k for each face-up card in your damage zone if the number of cards in your damage zone is more than or equal to your opponent's. You can count +1 and your Vanguard gains +5, right? So it makes your base 17, but also you can just call your Heal Guardians, right? So now you have 8 checks, right? 8 cards that check during your opponent's battle phase. So you have like 3 checks of Suriels, and then you obviously have the G-Guard that can essentially heal down, right? Or counterblast 3, stop +1, choose a card from your damage zone and call it to Guardian Circle. So there's a lot of utility, I think, now. A lot more healing, a lot more defensive capabilities. Obviously, now that you have 8 heals, like you're not going to miss a heal, hopefully. You're also running Purple OT. Purple OT was not evident in the past format. So now you have that to be able to, if you check it, then you get to heal, which is great. Unconditional heal is great. You're playing Sanctitude, 3 draw PGs. I have a feeling you could probably omit this and play the 4th No-CL so that you can free up a space for something else. Maybe like a 3rd Honolulu, maybe. But yeah, like I think this deck it's actually in a pretty good position in the format at the moment until Gridora becomes very popular. Gridora just stops this deck in its tracks real quick. So yeah, that's the Angel Gize list. Very cool list. Probably gonna play around with this. I think this deck is pretty cool. Then we had BCS Vietnam Standard. So 5 Shoujo Doji, the most dominant deck in top 16. It was crazy. The next highest was 2 Leonon, and then one of everything else, which is pretty crazy. I was at this event. I brought Michu. Another video will be released very, very soon explaining the reasons why I brought Michu and Katrina. Spoiler alert to the event, right? Then the top 8 was 2 Shoujo Doji, 1 Luar Shunui, me, the Michu. I made it to top 8. 1 Zorga, 1 Blangmai, and 1 Kairi. And then the top 4, first taken was Penkun with Shoujo Doji. Second was Thomas Nguyen with Luard. He is a returning Worlds player as well. Very good Luard player. Yeah, I like when I was watching his games over the weekend, it was just insane. Third was Ernest with Shunui, and then I placed 4th with Michu. So I guess looking at the odd-ish list, so I think Luard at the moment, you have to kind of know the matchup for this into Shoujo Doji for it to be viable, I think. And the way that Thomas played it over the weekend was just mind-boggling. It was like a masterclass, right? I think he played it very, very well. The deck was built for it. 4 Biscotti, 3 Undercover grade 3, and very, very slim on the hostage package. So only 1 of the grade 2, 1 of the orders. Radiance Caliburn as your Regalis to essentially draw you cards, 2 Painkillers, because you're playing a more slower game, and you're only playing 1 of the Solemn Clout Dragon as well. You're playing 3 Ezra's, pretty normal, 1 Maple to essentially call it back. You're playing Purple OT as well, not an offensive OT to essentially just slow down the game. And pretty much the longer the game goes, I think Luar just naturally wins. Because it will just never deck out. And you're also playing 1 Paris, being able to just freely guard like a 5th attack, which is too good, right? 5th attack, 6th attack, it's just too good. So yeah, Luard, very, very good. I think it is actually a pretty sleeper deck in the format at the moment if you know how to play it. Then Michu, the deck that I brought to Standard. I think this deck is so strong. I think people are sleeping on this deck. I feel that this deck is Leonorn but better. It's quicker than Leonorn. It hits like a truck on turn 3. Your middle column's minimum 31, and your sides are like 30, 38, depending if you have boosters. It's wild, right? If you go second, you have 4 attack, essentially 3 Vanguard attacks. So you have your Vanguard, then you have the grade 1 Nokno, then you have the grade 2 Nokno to drive check. So you have pressure on 3 attacks, which is pretty crazy, right? Like, I don't think any other deck has that. Maybe the only other deck is like Overlord, but even Overlord only has 2 units that have pressure, right? And you just don't know when I'll be able to check crit, right? Or when this deck ever checks crit. If it doesn't check on the first 2, it's gonna check on the 3rd and the 4th, which makes like your guarding very, very unoptimal, right? This deck has a lot of early game as well. You essentially just throw down your Nokonos, your Yuika bounces back. It's just so good, right? This deck thins itself. The Imagra goes into the Michu. Michu searches any of your cannonballs or any of your Nokonos. Your Imagra also top 7 searches for any of your orders as well. And then your ride line obviously grabs your grade 1, your grade 2, top 5 searches for Nokono or Cannonball. You just have a lot of searches and then you deck compress yourself, right? So yeah, this deck worked a treat. I think it was a good call. I was thinking of bringing Leonorn, but yeah, we'll talk about that in another video. So yeah, that's that. Then we had Vietnam Premium. This was only a top 8 cut. Didn't make the 128 player cut to make it top 16. So 2 Nobatama, 2 Narukami, 1 Neonectar, which was myself. I brought Katrina, 1 Mega Colony, 1 Angel Feather, Angel Gize again, and 1 Victor. Then the top 4. So first place, unfortunately I couldn't win it against him this time. I beat him in Manila last year. So Dane Gonda taking it first place with Ghidorah. Pretty easy matchup into Katrina. So I took Katrina, came second. Third was Robo Frenzy with Victor, and then fourth was Joshua Lee. I have a pretty funny story about this, but we'll talk about that in just a sec. So looking at Dane's list, it's very similar to the list that the Philippine guys brought for BSF Vietnam, BSF Manila. I think this deck list has a lot of success. It runs Dove Spin to essentially deck out Enlargolf to loop heals. Enlargolf can also be caught off Ghidorah, which can also be returned by Class Moth. Candelaria is a 1-card tech for the Narukami matchup. Maple free calls itself, and by free calling itself, Malagmantis is free. You also use Saphira. Saphira allows you to call a grade 2 or greater from drop. So at any point, you can just call like your Dove Spin or your Enlargolf. So essentially, you play 4 copies of Enlargolf to get your heals back. You play 2 of the V Brilliant Blisters for the Nobatama matchup to just stop a rear guard from attacking. Your 1 normal Brilliant Blister for any Vanguard-centric deck so that your opponent doesn't restand. You're also playing 4 of the Sweet Cocktail. It's just really good being able to just attack, so +1, draw 1, your front row gains +5, while your opponent negates 10. Forbidol is just an insane card to essentially get your like Inlet Pulse and your Enlargolf to call them out. 2 free units, you +2 essentially from them because you grab 1 back from Enlargolf, and then you draw 1 from the Inlet Pulse. So I think there's a lot of things in this deck that are very good. I think the grade 2, the 2 copies of the grade 3 Ghidorah, Loxa column is really good into the Shiranui matchup, essentially locking out your opponent from 1 attack, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, other than that, 4 Ghidorahs, your main stride, 1 Opterandus. If you're living through all 5, then, you know, you deserve to lose, right? But it doesn't really get that far. So yeah, Ghidorah, a very cool deck, not gonna lie. I think I'm probably gonna play this deck a little bit just to see how it works. I think the deck has a lot of potential, and the fact that it's won like 3 events, like there's obviously something going on, right? So that's that. Katrina list, this is the same list that I brought for BSF Vietnam. Sydney was 1 card different, which was the Inez instead of the Asha, but you know, why fix something that's not broken? I think this deck is just super standard, very straightforward. Like, it just does what it does. Get a bunch of PGs, against like Victor, I just double Honor lead every turn, which is pretty wild. Anelma Flower Carpet into Anelma to free up your tokens against the Shiranui matchup is just too good. Multi-attack on Force 2 is just, yeah, it just does what it does, right? Recycle PGs with your G guards. Yeah, we've seen it all, right? If you guys want more explanation on this deck, I do have a video on my channel. I think it was from Springfest. Feel free to watch that. And yeah, just kind of learn the deck, right? Then Robo Frenzy brought Victor. I think this deck is really cool. I think this deck, if it's built correctly, piloted correctly, like it did by Robo Frenzy, Ben, I think there's a lot of potential. This deck, essentially, if you have Gerahawk behind a Spiral Breaker, you essentially get 2 stacks of Busted. And then if you get 2 stacks of Busted, then, you know, you're on a Pentadrive already. You check OT at any point in the Busted turn, you just win because your opponent just can't recoup from that. Your front row gets 1 billion power, and then obviously, you know, Suzander powers anything that restands. You have a bunch of restands. The only CB that you use is like Osachi and the Gerahawk, Maoyaki on your kill turn. You put this in front of like a Gunsden, behind a Gunsden, and your number just becomes infinitely fat, right? G-Zone is just a bunch of like techs. Your main stride is Busted, obviously, and then your finisher strides are either like Favorite Champ, which is here, or your GBA, right? Either one. Your G guards allow you to countercharge. Your grade 4 Stephanie allows you to multi-draw on your opponent's turn, and then your Gundreed allows you to countercharge each time your Vanguard gets attacked. So yeah, like this deck, I think there's a lot of potential in this deck, especially if the meta becomes super Gridora. This deck just eats Gridora alive, right? So yeah, that is Victor. Then the 4th place. So this is a pretty funny story. So I was in the hotel room and I was like discussing, so how are you going with your deck log? And Josh says, hey man, I'm missing a Seizui. So Seizui is the crest maker, right? The one that comes from the Stride deck set you only get 1 copy of, which is like $80 worth. And he was like stressing, he was like calling a couple guys and it's like, oh dude, like where the hell is this? The only last time I brought this deck out was at McDonald's to test 3 games. And he thinks like he dropped that at McDonald's. So there's been like a meme, right? Like, you know, this guy dropped an $80 card at McDonald's, was on a 49 card deck and had to substitute in a card. And everyone in our testing group, including myself, were like, bro, this guy's gonna go 0-2 and he plays 4th place. Like, incredible player. Josh has been at Worlds multiple times, placed top 8+ at Worlds multiple times. Like, I think we were talking about like his achievements. It was like top three for V the year that Andre won. Then he top 4 premium for WGP, and then I think top 3 again at a World. So, you know, polished player. Like, this guy is, he knows what he's doing. And the fact that he went through a tournament with only 3 Seizui, only rode the crest Seizui grade 1, 3 out of 10 games, that's pretty wild, right? Like, he deserves it. Yeah, so congratulations, bro. It was an amazing trip. We'll do it again, right? Then we had WGP Season 4 in Indonesia. This is the last event that we have, I guess, the information for. So 2 Leonore made it, 1 Razel, 1 Eva, Odium, very cool deck, 1 Night Rose, 1 Chris Ran, and a Varga. Then the top 8, the top 4 was won by Daniel Justin. There's actually a lot of names here that I recognize that are pretty big players. Daniel Justin, truth be told that he also won BCS for Shadowverse Evolve on the same weekend. So busted player, DJ, very, very good player. Came first with Razel Vita, second was Henry with Eva, third was Steven Muniz. He's a very good player as well. I play him every regional at Jakarta. Played Odium, and then Kelvin Galini, my BSF teammate, part of myself, Wirab, and him, coming 4th place with Night Rose, so qualifying for the Indonesia finals later on in the year. So just checking the lists. So this is DJ's list with Vita. I think Vita is a really strong deck, especially if you can get an early game going. And I think this is the card that makes the early game go. Essentially, Dual Nation card allows you to call stuff. You have Kadwala, Sir Gawain's good. You know, Sir Gawain is a busted card. If you get that going, then you're pretty much winning, right? This deck plays the 1 grade 1 Maple, which is something that we don't usually see in other decks. 3 Aerial Sage, 1 of the Carbuncle, and then pretty much everything else is kind of normal, right? Only runs 1 Gabuelius, which I guess kind of makes sense. You don't really need it all the time. Your slots are better for like the early game because you really need to capitalize on that to, you know, fulfill your win cons in the later parts of the game. So yeah, very cool list. I think this is a really good list to kind of work off and, you know, going forward. Yeah, very, very cool. Then the EVA list. This EVA list is available in English. So nothing too crazy, I don't think. 2 Combine Rushes, 2 of the grade 1 super big monster booster, 1 of the freeze blitz order for every rested order. Very defensive deck. Still good, and as you can see, it still gets results, right? Different Fight would be very happy about this. So yeah, that's EVA. Third was Liel. So this is the crazy list that I was like, what the heck is going on here? So if you look at this list, there is no Filia, no Shenri clone, right? So Muniz played 4 Colossus, 4 Anachronos, 3 Liel, pretty normal, right? 4 Tiskar, but also plays 2 of this grade 2, which essentially, if it gets put into the regress gauge, choose one of your units +5. So you can swap over Anachronos and then give it a unit +5. Sometimes it hits numbers, but also plays 4 Orion. Like, no Shenri clone, but putting 4 Orions in and, you know, seeing success, which is, yeah, pretty crazy. 4 Alvarez, pretty normal, and a Dark States OT, like, that's pretty weird to me. I feel that Red OT is probably the best for this deck, but Dark States OT is, you know, pretty interesting. Like, Dark States OT means that you're playing a very Vanguard-centric line, which, to be honest, knowing my luck, I'll probably never hit the Dark States OT, but if I do, it's probably useless. So I feel like hitting the Red OT for me is more impactful, but, you know, obviously, you know, Muniz is obviously a really, really good player, and he's just cracked, right? No Shenri clone, and this is probably a deck that is available for English once Set 5 comes out, because we have no idea whether the Shenri clone comes out in English or not. So yeah, very cool list. Then Galini's last list that we're going to look for today, Night Rose. This guy's a Night Rose fanatic. If you guys don't know already, just check his Twitter, just look at his banner. He's got like a bunch of Night Rose SPs. Like, this guy's just it, right? 4 in Largulf, which is a lot. Like, I think a lot of players play a little bit less. 1 Night Storm, 2 Negralazy, 4 of the Shade, which is correct. 1 of the Order Package, 2 of the EB Cyclers, 1 of this EB Bind to grab a card back. So essentially you can discard your Enlargle, get your Enlargle back. But this deck doesn't play the grade 2 that stops autos on Rhea, and playing Red OT for maximum aggressiveness, right? Also doesn't play the Seed Order, but plays the Ghost Chase. Makes sense if you're playing, you know, the Planar Dragon, you just call the Planar Dragon, or you call the Gustian, you grab it back, Ghost Chase. Pretty easy stuff, yeah. So yeah, you know, very cool list. I think all of these lists are very good to kind of look at, especially when like the time comes to English. These are the decks that you probably would take notice of and kind of build around it. This is like the framework, and I think all of these players who top this particular event are very notable players. I've met all of them. Well, I think I haven't met Henry, but I've met the other 3. Very polished players, very, very strong players. So yeah, that's pretty much all the results we have for this weekend. If you guys like this video, pop a like, comment down below what you guys think of everything that happened over the past weekend. If you guys haven't already, click that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.